You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I'm Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today. And today we have a special guest. Today we have Kelsey Pritchard, and she is the State Public Affairs Director for SBA Pro-Life America. You can go visit the website, sbaprolife.org. We're going to discuss many topics today, but we're going to focus in on SBA Pro-Life, what they did, and basically targeting voters and informing people with education on what they do for the community. And obviously, we're going to kind of explore the results of the current election that we just saw witness. Donald Trump is the president-elect. So first and foremost, Kelsey, thank you for your time. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time. So let's kind of start off first with the strategy of the pro-life organizations such as the ones that you're part of, SBA Pro-Life America. Y'all had a historic investment between SBA Pro-Life America and Women Speak Out PAC, invest over $92 million, and that is the largest amount ever spent by these groups in the 2024 election.
Yeah, we saw this election as the election with the highest stakes for life that we've seen yet in this country. And so it was really unprecedented as far as the impact that this will have going forward now that we have Roe overturned and we're under the Dobbs decision. And so we did invest $92 million. We reached 10 million voters. And we did that in eight states that could have gone either way, that were battleground states. States like Arizona, Nevada, Montana, and we included states where there were key Senate races as well, like with the newly elected Senator Sheehy in Montana. And so we really focused on telling voters about Democrat extremism on the issue of abortion and really explaining to people that the Democrat Party has now gone from safe, legal, and rare as their position of abortion and gone from being pro-choice to being pro-abortion and not being able to draw a line anywhere for a limit of when they would limit abortion. So we talked to voters about that, what the stakes were, and we were just amazing. We were so pleased with the results and with taking the Senate and with the defeat of Kamala Harris and what that will mean for the fight for unborn children and their mothers and for this movement.
For the outreach efforts that were focused on both pro-life-based voters and also persuadable groups such as independents and some Democrats and also minority voters, what was the key strategy that you believe worked for SBA Pro-Life and also other pro-life organizations who took the initiative to try to educate these demographics?
Yeah, I think the key was the messaging for us and talking about Democrat extremism, talking about what Kamala Harris's promise was to the country, and that was to pass a national law banning states from having pro-life laws and to force every state to have abortion until birth. And so, people we saw people's minds change right before our eyes. People who said they were going to vote for the Senate Democrat candidate, they changed their minds based on conversations from us, changed people's minds on voting for Donald Trump versus Kamala. And it was just so important to have that door-to-door, face-to-face interaction with voters. Is something that can be very key in close elections. And it was key this year, and that was evidenced by the results that we saw.
Once again, let's Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Kelsey Pritchard, State Public Affairs Director for SBA Pro-Life America. And go to the website, sbaprolife.org. When you look at how SBA Pro-Life America can look at the results of this election, what's some of the things that they have in mind to build on the election successes and also in future campaigns and legislative battles?
Yeah, I think the election was a clear message that voters rejected the Harris agenda for all trimester abortion. Just looking at how much money and how much of her message was devoted to the issue of abortion, that was really her number one campaign focus on messaging. And this is a rejection of that. And voters also rejected the way the Biden-Harris administration has weaponized the federal government to push abortion on demand throughout any point of pregnancy. And so a priority for us is for President Trump and his administration to undo the damaging pro-abortion things that the Biden administration put into place, whether it's the mail order of abortion drugs, whether it was the jailing of pro-life advocates, or anything in between, trying to use EMTALA, a federal law that protects people and says that you need to be able to receive care in emergency rooms, using that as a way to try to take pro-life laws off the books. There were a number of things that this administration has done that Trump and his administration can undo administratively, and I think that is priority number one.
You mentioned about the spending on the ads. There is reports out there that Harris campaign and allies spent more than $1.4 billion on political ads, and as a result, it didn't really make that much of a difference in the result of the election. What has been the response with pro-life organizations understanding that fact?
Yeah, I mean, look how much money they poured into this. I think everyone who saw a Kamala ad probably also saw a Kamala abortion ad. It was just all over the place, and that was her messaging when she would travel to places and speak to her voters. Abortion was always front and center, and just the fact that 2 years after the Dobbs decision, which undid Roe, that we have a Republican president now incoming. We'll have majorities. We won the Senate. That is huge. I think that sends a huge message that they miscalculated, and that the American people are much more pro-life than the mainstream media or the Democrats in the abortion industry would have anyone believe.
And speaking of the Senate, what does the new 53-52 Republican majority in the U.S. Senate mean for the pro-life legislation at federal level?
There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but our organization firmly believes that we should protect life and have a national minimum protection around 15 weeks, which is when the science shows that a baby can feel pain. And that would right now, the U.S. is one of 8 countries in the world that allows abortion at any point. So that would remove us from that list. We would no longer be on that list with China and other countries like that. And so that is a goal that we believe we need to work toward. We know that there's a lot that needs to be done to get there. We are very encouraged by Senator John Thune becoming the majority leader in the Senate, and with that development that has happened this week, because he is a staunch believer in life, and he is someone who has an A+ rating from us, and who understands the need to protect babies from abortion at the point they can feel pain.
Donald Trump's campaign, they focus on a lot of things on their campaigning. The heavy one was the economy. And there has been actual facts out there that there has been a shift in who has been decided to vote for Trump in this past election. Seeing how the campaign play a role in how they influence people with their message, what do you think is the difference between how Trump managed his messaging versus Kamala?
Yeah, I think, of course, the economy was key, and it was so impactful for all voters, including women voters, who we saw turn out for him, in ways that people didn't expect. at the same time, I think what Trump did really well on the issue of abortion was expose how extreme Kamala is. And he did this on the debate stage, and he's just been consistent about this, pointing out that there is no limit that Kamala could support, and that Tim Walz, her running mate, he signed a law that allows abortion until birth. And now their state even got rid of the born alive protection there in Minnesota. And there have been 8 babies who survived abortions but died in Minnesota following that change in their state law. So he really exposed and isn't afraid to talk about how extreme they've become. And I really think that's something that Republicans in the future that they should use as an example and follow his lead.
We're talking to our guest today, Kelsey Pritchard, State Public Affairs Director for SBA Pro-Life America. Go to the website, sbaprolife.org. When you look at the mixed results in the abortion measures across various states, after seeing what has been fact and the results, what is the next direction for the pro-life movement?
Yeah, the 3 states where we won ballot measure fights were huge victories, and really for 2 reasons. And the first is that we had not won a ballot measure fight since the Dobbs decision. So these states became the first and really created a map and road forward for how future states can beat these things. And that was huge. The other thing is that there were 10 states with abortion on the ballot. Yes, 7 of them voted for abortion, but there were really only 5 states where it was really high stakes kind of ballot measure situation, because the 5 states had some sort of or have some sort of pro-life law on the books. So Arizona has a 15-week law, Florida has a 6-week law, South Dakota has a life at conception law. So out of those 5, we won 3, and that's huge. And we narrowly lost Missouri, which passed with 51% of the vote. So I think the lesson that we've learned through the victories and the losses is that in the state of Florida and Nebraska and South Dakota, where we had wins, we won there because the GOP was engaged, and because the governors in those states, senators, Republican leaders in general stepped out and were clear in their messaging that these abortion measures would have allowed abortion throughout all of pregnancy, that they would take away parental rights. And a lot of them made investments and gave the campaigns the ability to go on offense rather than defense the whole time. So really, people in future states need to emanate what Ron DeSantis did in Florida, in traveling all throughout the state, letting people know how extreme this abortion measure was, and really just foot on the gas pedal the whole time, and in on this issue. And people need to follow that if they want to be able to beat the abortion lobby in the future.
Seeing the voter outreach that y'all had a broad strategy, reflecting on the results, what has been the most significant shift that you have seen as far as maybe voters' attitude towards the topic of pro-life?
Yeah, I think, of course, money plays a big part in people's shifts and the way they vote. When we look at the ballot measures in South Dakota, the ballot measure only had about 40% support. So it was a blowout in South Dakota. And South Dakota is the only state where the pro-life side outspent the pro-abortion side. So I think, it was a reminder of how much the money matters in being able to message and get your argument out there. Beyond that, I think this election is, again, just a huge reminder that Americans are not pro-abortion. We have a lot of pro-life Americans throughout this country. And even the pro-choice Americans who are out there aren't comfortable with how far the Democrat Party has gone on this issue. They don't want no limits whatsoever. Even pro-choice people want to see some sort of limit in the 3rd trimester. usually in the second trimester, and around that 15-week point when science shows a baby can feel pain.
When you explored the future dialogue that pro-life organizations like yourselves at SBA Pro-Life America can engage people to help them better understand where you're coming from, because once again, there's always extreme view on either side you sit on, that either one is crazy or the other one's crazy. There's never a mix of understanding any point of view. Sometimes it's just blunt and extreme. What are some opportunities now that there is a majority of Republican influence that will get pro-life organizations to explore even more dialogue?
Yeah, I think there is a national consensus out there. If you look at poll after poll, whether it's Marist or Harvard-Harris, AP-NORC, all of these national polls show that Americans want some limited abortion after the first trimester. And I think that is a clear point that the American people have, the clear line that they have drawn. And I think we need to talk about that. We need to talk about consensus and finding the point where we can come together and agree upon a limit, because this situation where babies can be aborted in the second trimester and the third trimester, think about the story of the DC-5, where bodies of full-term babies were found outside of an abortion facility. This is not this is horrific. This is not humane. And I think most Americans can agree upon that. And so we need to continue these discussions and talk about, where there is some middle ground.
How do you think might the Trump administration, once they are in full effect, be able to prioritize pro-life legislation, and in what specific policy changes could help spark the movement momentum?
Yeah, I think that's something, I think we're still kind of in the phase of where we're celebrating the victory. But like I mentioned, I think priority number one is undoing the damage that the Biden administration has done, just through regulations and actions that you can take without even legislation. So stop the illegal funding of abortion through the Veterans Administration and Department of Defense. Start enforcing non-discrimination laws again, so Americans are never forced to participate in abortion. Reinstate the Protect Life rule at home and abroad to stop funneling taxpayers to the abortion industry, and free the people who were exercising their First Amendment right in protesting the killing of unborn children, and free them from federal prison, which some of them have been jailed. So I think that's a good starting place. But long term, the GOP pro-life resolve must be centered on the right to life for unborn children. And where you live should not determine whether you live. And that's why we need to start taking steps toward this national minimum protection for children at the point they can feel pain.
We're talking to our guest, Kelsey Pritchard, State Public Affairs Director for SBA Pro-Life America. Go to the website, sbaprolife.org. For those who are passionate about pro-life advocacy, what are some immediate ways that they can get involved or volunteer with a pro-life organization in their local area?
Yeah, I think the best way is to connect with a local pregnancy center, because the pregnancy centers are really the hands and feet of the pro-life movement. They're the ones who come alongside women who have unexpected pregnancies and need support. And they support women not just while they're pregnant, but after their child is born, and they support families. So, whether it's giving monetarily, whether it's giving your time, I think that is just so key to this movement. Otherwise, I think, just thinking about what your talents are, sitting down and praying, asking for guidance, what is there in store for what you could do for this movement? Because there's no shortage of work ahead. There's a lot that needs to be done, and we need all hands on deck.
As y'all are developing proven strategies that seem to work in this election cycle, what are some of the efforts that SBA Pro-Life America plans to attend to in future election cycles?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's TBD. Again, we're just kind of in celebratory mode, preparing for the new administration to come in, preparing for majorities in Congress, and big picture, we're just going to keep pushing for that national protection, and we're going to keep pushing to hold the line in the states that have pro-life laws, and protecting those laws that save lives in the states. And, they're going to come at us again with more ballot measures. We know that they're going to come at us with litigation in every way that they can. So getting creative and just trying to fight this fight at the state level and the national level.
On a personal level, when you look at young adults today who feel that they lean towards pro-life policies, but yet they might be hesitant in fear of backlash, kind of give the audience a reason why you're for pro-life and why.
Yeah, it is a huge civil rights issue of our time. It is the trying to fix this huge injustice for this whole group of people, millions, tens of millions of people who have been killed since the Roe decision because of their age, because they're in the womb. And these were babies who had heartbeats. These were babies who could feel pain, some of them could smile and suck their thumbs. Some of them you could know if they were a boy or girl. And to have this whole group of people who aren't with us because of abortion, I think I understand cancel culture is scary. I understand the fear behind that and behind what your peers might say about you or think about you or not want to be around you anymore. But I think if you weigh the costs against the benefits for speaking out for the defenseless will always win out, and it will always be worth it. And at the end of the day, in your later years, you won't regret having been a voice for those who cannot speak for themselves and having been a voice and a force for life.
As we are wrapping this up, what do you believe a role people, listeners, can play a role in as far as how they can help shape a culture that values life and how we can turn today's passion to a lasting change?
Yeah, I think, again, it comes down to being supportive of pregnancy centers. I think it comes down to when you have someone in your life who has an unexpected pregnancy, or someone who's, pregnant and maybe the father is out of the picture, or anyone, just coming alongside and being a good friend and supportive of the people in our lives, and being there to help them, not just with our words, but with our actions, showing up and helping. I also think, we've got a lot of Republican politicians out there who have been swayed by consultants that have said, this is the third rail. You should not touch it. Don't talk about abortion. That's a Democrat issue. Focus on the economy. I think we need to remind them that this issue is so central to the Republican base. And it is something that we, the people, want them to be bold on. We don't want them to be cowards and ostriches and stick their heads in the sand and to run away from the issue and let Democrats define them and mischaracterize their position. They, as our elected officials, they are really in charge of guarding our rights and passing laws and doing things that benefit people. And what better way to do that than to protect unborn children and protect women and girls from the horrors of abortion, and especially late-term abortion.
Last question. We look towards the future of Trump's presidency. What do you believe will have a positive impact, not just for pro-life, but for opportunity to even continue to reach new people who be open to it? Yeah,
it's interesting to look at the people the segments of the population who voted for Trump, that they thought were going to underperform. And And I think that's also a reminder to the pro-life movement that there's this new generation of voters. There are people that maybe we haven't talked to in the past or focused our messaging on. But I think people are fed up with some of this woke culture stuff. I think they're fed up with the huge institutions of our society, whether that's the legacy media, it's Hollywood, it's higher ed, or these C-suites that have become really pro-abortion or woke. I think people are fed up with that. And there is a lack of trust there. So I think there is an opportunity to reach people with the truth, especially now that people are more tuning into alternative media and getting their news for themselves and thinking more for themselves. I think that's a huge way that we can change hearts and minds in the next few years.
You listen to Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Kelsey Pritchard, State Public Affairs Director for SBA Pro-Life America. You can go to the website, sbaprolife.org. Like always, I want to say thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.